Welcome to episode 6 of Voices from the Northeast. This episode is a little bit of a first. I have had so many people want to contribute to this episode that I'm going to have to release it in 2 parts. Part 1, which you're listening to now, I'm releasing on Friday night, and it'll be available for you to listen to for as many times as you want after that. And then part 2, I'm going to release on Saturday, and again, that'll be available forever for you to listen to as many times as you like. This episode is all about the games we played when we were children and how we entertained ourselves. So without further ado, let's dive into the first memories. The first voice you're going to hear on the show tonight is a new contributor. This is Vince, and these are the games he played.
What occurred to me is that, there were a number of games we played, but behind them all, they relied on our imagination. When we were kids, when I was a kid in the 1950s, there weren't the toys and the games around that there are today. And I was an only child, so I didn't have brothers and sisters to play with. So a lot of the games I'm sure people will remember will be games that they played with other kids. The likes of obviously your sports, your football, your cricket, etc., and your street games, like hopscotch and skipping, etc. But I didn't always have access to people to play with. So what I came up with was games that I could play in a solitary way. And being a kid in those days, you needed to have a good imagination to make the most of what you had. So most of the stuff that I played with, and most of the games that I played, were things that I could play on my own. And one of the things that occurred to me was I found a way of playing cricket on my own.
Oh, right.
And
that sounds ingenious just to have come up with a place.
All I needed to play that was 2 pencils. And in those days, all of the pencils that I had access to were the ones that were 6-sided, the old hexagonal pencil.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And what I did was I got 2 of those, and on one pencil, I carved the number 1, then the number 2, then 3, then 4. I missed out 5, but I put 6 in, and on the final edge of the pencil, I would write out. And then on the second pencil, I would write bold, stumped, not out, LBW, caught, no ball. And then I could roll the pencil with the numbers on and get a score. Of course, I would build up a team.
Yeah.
So I'd have a list of players and take them one by one, and roll for the first player and get a score, or maybe out for a duck, whatever. And then I would then I would run roll the second pencil, and that would tell me whether he'd been bowled or whether he'd been stumped or whether it was a not out. So
wow,
I played that game for hours and hours.
That is really creative. that is fantastic. Yeah, no, that is so good. I mean, like you say, that's a real, imagination and creativity and problem solving. Yeah. It's all of those things rolled into one. What a fantastic thing to do. Yeah. That's so great.
Well, we had to in those days, as I say, there weren't the ready-made games and toys. You had to just invent your own. I did. One of the books that I wrote was the autobiography of Sissy Charlton, Bobby and Jack's mother, and she told me about a game that she played with her brothers when she was little, and that I hadn't heard this one, but she told me about it, and it was another one of these games which you needed nothing to play it, and well, you needed something, but it was just rubbish that you would find, and the game was called Kit Kat. Has any of the other contributors mentioned that?
Yeah, I don't think I've heard this one yet.
Well,
no.
Kit Kat, the way you played Kit Kat was you found a stick of some sort. It could be an old chair leg, or it could be a broom shank, or some sort of stick, which had obviously been thrown out or you'd found lying somewhere. And then you needed two other pieces of wood, one of them short and one of them long. And the short piece of wood you would put on the pavement or on the road, and then you would lie the longer piece on top of it, so it was like a seesaw.
Right.
And on the part of the seesaw that was touching the ground, you would place a stone on that bit of wood. Or if you didn't have a stone, then another smaller piece of wood or anything that would just rest on that length of wood. And then you would hit it as hard as you could with the stick. You'd hit the other end of the seesaw with your stick. That would hurl the stone, or even a piece of coal would do. That would throw that into the air. And then you would hit it with the stick as far as you could. That was their game, and that was Kit Kat.
I have to admit, I was very impressed with Vince's ability to entertain himself as a child and come up with his own cricket game that he could play by himself. So clever. Okay, let's see whose memories are up next. I'm going to continue introducing new voices to the show now. This is Jacqueline, and Jacqueline's going to take us back to her school playground.
Well then, I'm going to start at 1954, when I went to the North Infants. In those days, a lot of the games involved either being chased or you chasing other people. So one of the favourite games that the girls liked was Fairies and Witches.
Ooh.
It's a bit like sort of Tiggy on high and Tiggy out of the pie. And it just involved sort of a body chasing lots of girls who, we call them fairies, elves, or whatever you want. And when they were caught, they were put into a den, but it was called the pie. And the other friends of whoever was caught would try to rescue them out of the pie by touching their outstretched hands. But you had to be careful because the body could take them, and then they were put into the pie. So that was quite interesting.
Oh, isn't that? Do you know, that's so strange, isn't it? How, I mean, that game was obviously still played when I was at school, but it had changed. Well, yeah, but I mean, it was literally just called Tig, and it was, you'd be standing there saying, "I can't move, I've been tigged." You had to stand still when you got caught, and I think somebody had to run underneath your arms to untig you so you could run again. That was what your friend had to do. But I just think it's fascinating that games like that, are continuously played, but they just change a little bit, or something. Yeah.
Just something different. And I think in different parts of the Northeast, I think some of these games might be known by different names as well.
Definitely.
They're all basically the same, aren't they? Oh, in the winter, and I'm sure you must have done this as well as others, Squashy in the corner.
Now, you see, I've heard this, but I do not remember playing this. But do explain.
Yes, well, I mean, when I was at school in the juniors, I can't ever remember being kept indoors if the weather was bad. You went out to play regardless of the weather, and sometimes it was so cold that you wanted to squash in the corner, and the more people that could squash you, the warmer you got. And when you fell out of the corner, there was somebody else there to take your place, so you had to go at the back again and squash other people. But it was marvellous for keeping yourself warm. Now, of course, everybody knows the Farmers in his Dane. That was a good one. But we used to play in and out the Dusty Bluebells, but we called it Dusty Bloomers when I was at school. And that was a good one for the girls, because the girls all stood in a circle. They held hands, but they lifted their arms above their heads. And you had one girl would sort of weave in and out of the arms, and they would sing the song. I mean, I can sing it if you want, Paul.
Hey, why not? Go on.
Right, here it goes. In and out the dusty bloomers, in and out the dusty bloomers, in and out the dusty bloomers, you are my lady. Then they would stop and put their hands on a girl's shoulder, and then they would sing again. Pitter pitter patter on my shoulders, pitter pitter patter on my shoulders, pitter pitter patter on my shoulders, you are my lady. Then that girl would leave the circle and go with the original singer, you know. I joined up as a team, and then the two of them would go in and out of the girl's arms, you know, and they would just stop at somebody else until there was nobody left. But I think everybody's played leapfrog before. But there was one day I was playing leapfrog, and I was the one that was like bending over. And I remember the girl, they called her Anne Ritson, and it was her turn to jump over me. And she said, "You'll not raise your head, Jacqueline, you'll not lift your head up." I said, no, I'll not. Promises you'll not lift your head up. Well, that's a silly thing to say, isn't it? You automatically want to lift your head up, which I did. Just at the time she was going to jump over me back. So she went flying over me, Paul, and she bust her lip. So that put an end to that, you know.
Oh, dear me.
Well, I mean, there was other ones, you know, that other game sort of with your bowl and your skippy ropes and things like that.
Yeah, they're all great, because I mean, one of the interesting things we've had so far is that there are some repetitions when I've asked different people about stories, but I like that there's lots of little ones that you've told me there. So I might not play all of them. I'll pick some of them out.
Yes.
But that's really good. No, there's some really nice ones there.
Yes.
And yeah, you know, leapfrog, it's a funny one, isn't it? Part of what's interesting about doing the podcast with people is we take for granted that we remember playing something as simple as leapfrog. Mm-hmm. But when you then share that memory with other people, somebody sits there and goes, God, I remember that. And suddenly something comes flooding back to them.
Yes. I mean, great days, Paul. You know, when I look back, sort of like the 1950s, early 1960s were a great time, full of happy memories. And, well, being young, you didn't have a care in the world.
Well, that's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, look, thank you very, very much. It is much appreciated. I'll be editing this over the next couple of days, and then it all goes online probably Friday night, just before we do the quiz. It'll go online, so you can listen to it over the weekend.
Right. Well, I look forward to that.
All right. I will speak to you again on Friday.
Okay, then. Thanks, Paul.
Take care, Jacqueline. Thank you.
Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I am so sure that Jacqueline's stories there have put a smile on your face. They'll have brought back some wonderful memories, I'm sure. Squashy in the corner, anyone, on a cold day? The in and out of the Dusty Bloomers absolutely creases me, because you can just imagine kids singing that from either mishearing it or choosing deliberately to, you know, make the song sound almost a little rude. And who thought that leapfrog could be so dangerous? Although I suppose anyone that's seen kids running around a schoolyard would have thought that, actually. Right, let's see whose memories are up next. Now we're going to go back to one of our regulars. This is Neil, and I can guarantee he's going to make you laugh.
Saturday mornings, we're out there at 9 o'clock. Everybody used to meet in the lane and decide what we're going to play. Now, one of the favourite games to be played in the lane was Canon. Now, Canon consisted of some very high-tech equipment. you had to have a tin can. Now it didn't matter whether it was a bean can or a pea can or a carrot can. It didn't make any difference as long as it was empty. Now you had to turn the can upside down so that the open end was on the bottom, and the bit that still had the lid on was on the top. Now you had to get some sticks. Normally what we used to use was lollipop sticks because they were just a nice size and you could pick them up easy. What you did was you had two teams. One team had to knock the cannon over after the other team put the sticks on them. Normally with a tennis ball so that people didn't get hurt too much. So one team used to put the sticks on top of the tin, and it was placed next to the wall. The team with the ball used to hit the tin can and send the sticks flying. The other team had to run across between 2 points, pick up the sticks and put them back on top of the tin. The team with the ball. Go on the ball.
No, go on. So when did they have to? So they had to run across and pick these sticks up between each throw of the ball, or how did that work?
Yeah, the ball throwing team had to try and hit the opponents as they ran across to pick the sticks up. And of course, you had to have fielders because in them days the ball could bounce anywhere, especially if it hit one of the opponents. So you had fielders on both sides, and you had the ball thrower opposite the tin can. So first of all, you had to run across and put the tin can back in place, and then you had to pick the sticks up and put them on top of the tin, whilst trying not to get hit with the tennis ball. If you were hit with the tennis ball, you were out.
Ah.
If you got all the sticks put back on top of the tin and you still had somebody in play, you would shout, "Cannon!" and you'd actually accomplished, you'd won the game. If, however, all the team were knocked out by being hit with the tennis ball, you were out and you had to start again. So that was cannon.
That's it. Now that's a good one then, Neil, because that's been mentioned a lot on the on the Facebook where I asked people to share their memories of games. Loads and loads of people commented with cannon. So I needed that described, particularly to me, but I'm sure to other listeners as well. My other listener, I think that's cannon. Well done. I like that. Actually, I think I would have played that in my day if I'd known that game.
It's a team game, but of course now you see there's not the children. I mean, there must have been better part of 12, 15 kids used to live in our street. So
yeah.
Saturday mornings, 9 o'clock, we're all out there, and we used to stay out there at lunchtime, go in for lunch, back out, back in for tea, back out until it was dark. And even when it was dark, we used to congregate around the lamppost, and we used to play Tiggy on High. Now, Tiggy on High, again, you had somebody had to try and touch you, and if you got touched, you were out. But if you got on high, you were safe. And normally the lamppost was what you call on high, so you could jump. If you jumped onto the lamppost, you couldn't be tigged. And if there was about six of us, it was a bit of a job getting onto the lamppost, I can tell you, because you were jumping on the top of people, and people were throwing you off, and you had to run away so you didn't get touched or tigged by by whoever was the tigger. Not to be confused with a tiger. It was a tigger.
Tigger. I like that. Oh yeah. Tiggy on High or Tag on High. I can remember playing that still when we were little. I can remember that game. But mind you, there was only like 4 kids in my street when I was little, so it wasn't quite so. I remember running around the streets, climbing on top of people's walls and stuff.
Yeah.
To get on high.
You had to get on high. that was a good game, and we used to play that even when it was dark because we had the use of the lamppost. And then, of course, we used to play cricket. We used to actually play cricket in the lane. Now, a strange fact, Paul, which I'm sure some of your listeners will know, but have never thought of till today, that it was quite strange. We used to use the top of a dustbin, the dustbin lid, a metal one, as the wicket. Now, to stand the dustbin lid up, we used an upturned brick, a 9x3 brick. And the uncanny fact of this is that the handle of the dustbin lid fit exactly on top of the 9-inch brick, with the edge of the bin lid resting on the ground. Now, I'm not sure to this day whether the designers designed the brick first or the dustbin lid.
but either way, the children were enormously grateful.
That was it. It just fit exactly on top. And again, we used to 2 teams, cricket, but it was if you hit the ball over the wall, it was 6 and out.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was a bit difficult to get your ball back, because in them days there were still some miserable people, and there were certain doors you just didn't go in to ask for your ball back. Sometimes your ball got thrown back and had been split with a knife.
Oh.
That's the way it was in them days. But mostly people were okay, and I don't think there was that many windows actually ever got broken.
Well, thank goodness for that. Also, I would imagine when you do hit the wickets or the tin, the bin tin lid must have made one heck of a noise when it went down.
There was no question about whether you were in or out. When the ball hit the dustbin lid, it rattled. It bounced off the brick and it rattled. It went, and you knew you were out.
Fantastic. Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Neil. There, I mean, particularly for Canon, because I had sort of tried to pick up and understand that from what people had said in their comments on Facebook. So it's nice to have a live explanation of Canon, particularly.
Well,
and Tig on High. That's a memory for me as well.
Yeah, I just wonder if your listeners can remember playing Penky Foller.
Penky Foller. Oh, go on, explain this one then.
Penky Foller was a game we used to play in the gutter. A penker was actually a ball bearing. Now, we used to get the ball bearings of various sizes from our dads from the pit. There were ball bearings, but we used to call them penkers. Hence,
so what would they have been used for at the pit then before you got a hold of them, Neil?
There were bearings.
Oh, okay.
Wheel bearings.
Wheel bearings, right.
Yeah, wheel bearings. There were, as I say, various sizes. You could get them, up to an inch, maybe even 2 inches with the real big ones. But there were, if you had a big penker, well, there you go.
Well, yes.
You were made. The only thing,
popular in deal.
Oh,
so
yes. You were very popular if you had big penkers. The only trouble was they didn't half weigh your pockets down.
I imagine so. So what was the game then? You're in the gutter with the penkers, and what are you doing?
Yeah, we used to normally play it when we left school. In my case, it was a North school. We'd leave the North school and we would play Penky Foller on the way home. And what you had to do was, there was 2 you played the game, and you bowled, that's through, you bowled your penker, your ball bearing, doing the gutter. And the opponent had to bowl his penker down and try and hit your penker. Now, if he did manage to hit your penker, he got the penker.
Ah.
But it wasn't as easy as you think, because the gutters weren't exactly level. And, and of course, you had to look out for cars. Not that there was very many of them, but you only got one try, and if your pinker often bounced over the other one, so you had to be very careful, and especially when you got near the drain hole, you had to bounce your pinker, because if you lost your pinker doing the drain hole, that was it. You'd had it. You had to start again. And that's why sometimes it took me that long to get home, because we used to play Penky Foller.
Saturday mornings gathering to play games with your friends. I can genuinely remember that. That was when school finished during the week and the weekend was all yours. Where did those days go? Canon, that was mentioned by so many people on Facebook, so it was really great to have Neil explain that game properly to me. Tiggy on High, still played by many a child now, I'm certain. Bin lids for cricket stumps, noisiest game of cricket ever, I would imagine. And Penky Foller. Please get in touch with me if you can remember being late home from school because you were following your pinker down the gutters. One of the new sections of the podcast is being able to share some of your memories from Facebook. The Asherton Remembered Facebook group is absolutely wonderful, and I thank everyone on there for sharing their memories with me. I probably can't share all of them, but I'm going to do a quick read through of some of the ones that I can see at the moment. So I've got Munt the Cuddy. More on that next episode, I promise. That was shared first, I think, by Alan. Thank you for that, Alan. Dawn mentioned games like hopscotch, Kirby, and walking on tin cans with string to keep them on your feet. Yep, I can remember my grandma creating some tin can steppers for me like that. Barbara, kick the can, knocky 9 doors. She does tell us that her favourite was tying 2 outside door handles together and then knocking on both handles to watch the people inside try and get out. She sounds like an absolute tearaway. Munt the Cuddy gets another mention from Sid there. Amy mentioned Hoy the Knife, which sounded absolutely terrifying. Apparently, it was a case of throwing the knife, and if the opponent was able to stretch to reach the knife, or it didn't stick in the ground, they got the points. Still sounds pretty deadly. Jennifer mentioned Squashy in the Corner, which we've covered, which was a good one. Mike, I think, was the first person on the Facebook group to mention Canon. So again, I was really pleased to have Neil actually talk us through what Canon involved. Munt the Cuddy gets another mention from David there. Solo tennis is mentioned by Dorothea. Doug mentions playing marbles. Brian Curbsy. British Bulldog was mentioned by Steve. I remember playing that one as a kid. Munt the Cuddy gets another mention there of Julie. I promise we have a wonderful explanation and memory of Munt the Cuddy shared in the next episode. Penky Foller gets its first mention there by Tom. I hope you enjoyed the explanation of that, Tom, and I hope you yourself were late home from school more than once like Neil playing that game. Heidi Bo Seek, mentioned by John. Fox and Hounds, Canon, Tinny, Pat members those. Val shares 2 Bally. Painting on the walls with the water in a tin. I remember doing that actually. And watching it slowly dry and your wonderful piece of art disappear. Knocky 9 Doors gets another mention from Beryl. Dawn mentions skipping, roller skating, Farmers in the Den, Big Ship Sails Through the Alley or yeah, some wonderful memories there. And thank you to everybody who took a minute to share any of their games and memories from the Facebook group there. It really is appreciated and spawned many of the conversations from tonight's episode and the episode you will be able to hear tomorrow as well. Okay, please do share more memories in future. I really enjoy being able to read some of those out on the page and from the page, and I would really like to be able to get people to come and join the show in future as well, but more on how you can do that in a second. Gosh, we are at the end of tonight's show. But remember, this week the show is going to air over 2 days, so you get an extra dose of memories again tomorrow evening. My thanks for this episode definitely go to Vince and Jacqueline for being new contributors, as well as Neil for sharing more memories. If you'd like to share a memory on the show, please drop me an email at podcastnortheast@gmail.com. Just send me an email with your name, maybe tell me something you'd like to talk about, and I'll get in touch and we'll see if we can sort out doing a short interview over the internet. Coming up tomorrow night in part 2 of this episode, we're going to be talking about Munt the Cuddy, skipping games, singing games, and so much more. Join me then, but until then, stay safe and well, everybody. I'm going to let local musician Billy Foster play us out tonight, having kindly donated his song Ashington Remembered to the show. Enjoy.
Ashington Remembered. It's a group for me, with the pictures and the stories of the way that it used to be. The biggest mining town in the world, with folks second to none, with a thriving community. Where is it all gone? We had the pits somewhat working 24 hours a day. The miners were working shift work for a good day's pay. The wives would stay at home and prepare some proper food, like broth with leeks and stotties. Man, it tasted good. Ashington Remembered. Aye, that's a good for me. With the pictures and the stories of the way that it used to be. Picture house, I think we have 4. There were hours full to the door. Remember the white shop punchers with sawdust on the floor. Dolphins for our pasties, and with the Andersons for our pork. Maynards for our sweets and newspaper before we went home. Kids would play in the backyards with tennis balls and teams. Or we'd play in football till it was dark, and the goalposts were made from dustbins. Lassies playing skippy or two barley against the wall. Where you knew it was time to go on yet, when your mother gave a cow. Remember the Subtle How, or the local Grand Hotel, the covered in Margaret and Woolworths, where all the shops go well, and the jazz bands marching on Carnival Day. Sound of the Colliery Brass Band. I remember it just like it was yesterday, hearing a tiny little grand. Ashington Remembered, that's something for me. With all the pictures and the stories of the way it used to
be. Another first for this episode, I'm going to read out some of the comments that people shared on Facebook when I asked people to share their memories of games they played back in the day. So, Michael shared playing Squashy Tomatoes in first school. How nobody got injured more than a few scratches is amazing. I'm going to assume that's something like Squashy in the Corner. Munt the Cuddy was mentioned by Alan. 2 Bally Keep Up, Hopscotch, Tally Ho, to name but a few. Dawn also mentions Hopscotch, Kirby, walking on tin cans with string to keep them on your feet. I do remember my grandma setting that one up for me to play when I was little, down Catherine Street next to Hurst Park. Barbara, Kick the Can, Knocky 9 Doors. She does mention that her favourite was tying 2 outside door handles together, then knocking on both doors to watch people try to get out. What a rebel. Derek mentions leapfrog, building dens with blades of straw. I do remember building dens. We used to go down the woods to do that with my friends. Amy mentioned her mum played Hoy the Knife. Now, I did have to ask for this because I said, please tell me this was a game with a target or some kind of distance activity. And she replied to tell me that you stood about 2 meters apart, facing each other, throw a knife, something like a butter knife, nothing too sharp, to the side of your opponent, not too far out, as you'll give them a point. So they had to be able to just reach it, I think. Jennifer mentions Squashy in the corner as well. Mike mentioned Canon, which is great because we've had the explanation from that from Neil, so I hope that brought back memories, Mike. Dorothea mentions playing solo tennis against the wall in the back lane. I can remember doing that. Doug mentions Potsy, marbles. Brian mentions Curbsy. Alison, getting an old nylon off your mum, putting a tennis ball in it. Used to stand flat against the wall and swing it back and forth, bouncing the ball off the wall. That was loud. I'm sure the neighbours love that one. Moon the Cuddy is mentioned by Julie. Dawn mentions pinching Mam's washing line to play double Dutch. Tom mentions Penky Foller, Muggies, Chucks. John, Heidi Bo Seek. Few people comment on that one and mention Heidi Bo Seek as well. Ross, love your version. Pat, I remember Fox and Hounds, Cannon, Tinny. Two Bally was mentioned by Val, Chucks, Heidi Bo Seek. And Liz mentions on rainy days playing Battleships and Hangman. Julie used to love playing Curbsy and Conkers. I'm surprised we had so few mentioned of Conkers, but not as many as I thought. Sheila remembering hopscotch under the streetlight in the lane. Brian again, Munt the Cuddy, Cannon. Jean mentions painting Grandma's walls in the yard with baby milk tin full of water. Used to spend hours doing this. I can remember doing that with like buckets of water and a paintbrush. Dawn mentions skipping, roller skating, farmers in the den, big ship sails through the alley or. And Paul mentions hedge hopping. I'm sure his neighbours loved him. Billy mentions playing Japs in English. I think maybe now we're just supposed to call it playing war, but that's definitely how most people I know call it. So don't worry there, Billy. Joyce mentions the whip and top, Chasey, playing hot rice, rounders and hopscotch. Marie mentions marbles and penkers. Carol, kicking the can and rounders. Just wonderful, so good. Thank you so much to everybody for sharing those memories. That's some of them, and I will try and share a few more from the Facebook page in part 2.